Okay, good morning. Let's start the class with prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhu Bhavaswaha, Tatsavitra Vargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Asto Ma Satgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamya. Om Sahanavavtu, Sano Bhunaktu, Saviryam Karvavahi, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti 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 Om. Vivekachudamani. And last week's class, we learned that when the knots of ignorance in the heart have been totally destroyed, what natural cause can prompt a man who is averse to sense pleasures to egocentric actions? So that means the egocentric actions, they go away. This avidya, karma, and karma is the one which prompts us towards the egocentric actions. So our sadhana should always be directed towards getting rid of the knot of the heart. Ignorance, desire, and actions. Okay, and we talk about it and you know what the deep significance of this is. Now let's start the class with verse number 425. And in your books, it could be a little different number, but if you're attending the classes, you know where we are. Vasana anudeya bhogye vairagasya he tada avadhi aham bhav ude abhavaha bodhasya paramavadhi लीन वृते अनुत्पत्ति मर्यादा उप्रते तु स vasana anudaya. See, udaya means rising, anudaya means not rising. So that means no rising of the desires. Vasana anudaya. Bhogye, that means bhog, for the pleasure, worldly pleasure. Vairagasya, of vairagya, dispassion. Tada means then, avadhi means the culmination. Aham bhav ude abhavaha, absence of the rise of ego sense. So ude abhavaha. Bodhasya, of knowledge. Param avadhi, supreme perfection. Leen vrite, of the merged thoughts. Anutpati, non-appearance. Maryada, the peak. Uparate, of self-withdrawal. Tu means but, sa means that. Adi Shankaracharya ji is saying the culmination of dispassion or vairagya is when the sense objects do not excite any more desire. Okay? So that's why we cultivate this vairagya. So culmination, that's like a limit of that. When you reach the highest. So culmination of dispassion is when the sense objects do not excite any more desires. So they could be there, the objects are there, you are roaming in between the objects, but no desire is being arisen inside you. The supreme perfection of knowledge is when there is no egoistic feeling. Okay, so the knowledge also, say vairagya, because of vairagya, no more excitement for the objects, no desire. And when the knowledge is perfected, no egoistic feeling. And the peak of self-withdrawal is reached when the thoughts which have been merged Manifest no more. No more manifestation of the thoughts. So he's telling us when we do this sadhana, where this sadhana is taking us. So the states of total attainment of Varangi, knowledge, and uprati. These are the three things he's talking about. And he has explained all this earlier also. So great elaboration has been done. But now over here, he's telling us the limit, the summit of Vairagya is the total absence of desire to seek any enjoyment in the world of objects. Because why our mind goes towards the worldly objects? We think we'll have some kind of enjoyment. But when you understand, there is a higher enjoyment, the highest, the perfect, then you really don't look for enjoyment in the temporary. So this is a fulfillment of the Vairagya. There's no vasanas. All the sanskars, all the impressions, they have been roasted. And all these objects which are dancing around us, they don't create any kind of a thoughts of enjoyment. That is a Vairagya. And the climax of knowledge is the absence of I-ness and my-ness. No egoistic feeling. That is a fulfillment of knowledge. You are completely established in the reality. And from here, what comes? Supreme peace. Supreme peace. And that's what uprati is. Param uprati, he talks about. That is almost like an attainment of the sublime height of wisdom. So when these three are gained, what do you experience? Unbroken knowledge of infinite bliss. Okay. So he has talked about these three before, but now over here in this verse, he has put all these three together. So Vairagya, Bodha, and Uprati. Let's look at the next verse. Brahma Karatya Sada Sthitya Nirmukt Bahe Arthadhi Anya Vedit Bhogye Bhog Kalnaha Nidra Nidraluvat Balvat Pashyan Jagad Idam Swapan Alokit Lokvat Kvachit Labdhi Kvachit Aste Sabhuvi Manyaha Anyant Punya Fal Bhuk Dhanyaha. Brahma Kartya, on account of absorption in Brahma. Brahmakar. Sada means constantly, always. Sthitya, on account of that abidance in Brahma. Nirmukta Bahe Arthadhi. Nirmukta means free, free from the sense of reality of external objects. Bahe, Bahe Artha, outer things. So free from the sense of reality of external objects. Anya Vedit Bhogye Bhog Kalnaha. Only seemingly enjoying the sense objects when offered by others. Nidraluvat, like one sleepy. Balvat, like a baby. Pashyan, perceiving. Jagad idam, this world. Swapana lokit lokvat, as one seen in the dream. Kvachit, now and then only, kvachit. Labdadhi, Labdvi means recognizing. Kochit aste, such a person is rarely there. Kochit. Sa means he, bhuvi, in earth. Manyaha, most revered. Anant punya fal bhuk, enjoyer of the fruits of infinite. Anant is infinite. Okay, infinite untold merits. Punya fal. Dhanya, truly blessed. On account of constant absorption in Brahma, freed from the sense of reality of external objects. So that means we got to detach from the external, only then we can absorb ourselves into internal Brahma. So on account of constant absorption in Brahma, freed from the sense of reality of external objects, only seemingly enjoying them when offered by others. Like one sleepy or like a baby, perceiving the world as one seen in a dream and recognizing it only now and then. Such a person is indeed rare. He is the enjoyer of the fruits of untold merits and is truly held blessed and revered on earth. So he's talking about a realized person, a Jivan Mukta over here. He's indicating this matchless joy which is experienced by this realized person. Because most of the times this person is in a meditation, totally absorbed in the Brahma. Even when he is externally, seemingly externally doing things, but his attention is always towards the Brahma, towards the God. Because he has already cleansed his intellect from all kinds of disturbances. His mind has transcended, totally risen above the lower planes of awareness. So no more anxiety about the outer world. Because most of our anxieties are what? About the external world. Acquiring this, keeping this. So this person is enjoying things. It's not that he doesn't enjoy. He is not anxious about getting anything, but somebody does something, he'll enjoy it. Body is still there. Senses are there. He will eat food. He will wear clothes. But no more anxiety about them. So that's why he gave this two similes over here, Nidralu and Balvat. Somebody is sleeping and you put a blanket on that person. The person is not asking, but sure will feel the warmth of that blanket. Or when the baby, mother is feeding, baby is not anxious about the food, but mother will give and he will drink the milk. Balvat. Because that baby is not conscious that when and where the food will come from, but definitely enjoy it. This is called a Behirmukh Abhavat. He is unconscious of the outer world and the time. If others help his physical existence, he remains still totally absorbed internally. So that's why these two examples he is giving it to us. But now the question is, does such a person, a Jivan Mukta, experiencing the outer world? Shankaracharya says, yes, he does now and then. He does experience. He is not a stone statue. He will recognize the existence of the world around. He is perceiving the world also, but it is almost like in a dream. He is conscious of the non-existent, illusory nature of the world. He knows it's temporary. He knows it's Maya, but he recognizes that this is a Maya. Then at the end, he says, rare are such realized people. A person who can stay merged in the self, extremely relaxed, completely happy. And where did it come from? He's telling us this is the result of the infinite punya karam. He acquired them in many, many lives in the past. Ananta punya fal bhugdanyaha. But he right now is totally absorbed in the divine self. And then he is most revered also because all of us want to go there. We want to achieve that state. And when we see somebody like that, then we get attracted to that. So he's the most revered on the surface of the earth, he says. Now let's look at next one. Ya sthit pragyaha ayam yati brahmani eva vilinatmaha sadanandam ashnute nirvikara vinishkreha. Sthit pragya word we are used to. We learned that in Bhagavad Gita also. A man of steady wisdom, sthit pragya. Yatir ayam, such a master of senses. Ya means whoever. Brahmani eva, in Brahm alone. Vilinatmaha, having merged himself. Sadanandam, everlasting bliss. Ashnute, enjoys. Nirvikara, see, changeless or without modifications. Nishkriya, without activity. So that means devoid of all changes, free from activity. That person of steady wisdom, having merged himself in Brahma, enjoys everlasting bliss. Without modifications or activity. If you want to learn more about Sthit Pragya, go back to Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. It's a great description given over there also by Lord Krishna. But over here, Adi Shankaracharya is saying that great one who has got steady illumination of knowledge, Sthit Pragya, who has merged his entire inner equipment. Inner equipment means man, buddhi, chit, ahankar in the infinite Brahma. What is the outcome of that? He is enjoying the eternal bliss. We know that when we absorb our senses into something in the outer world, sure, we get happiness, but that is temporary. This is eternal bliss. Such a person is ever changeless and free from all ego-prompted selfish activities. Steady wisdom, with the help of the steady wisdom, reaches the state of perfect tranquility. There are no modifications, no changes. He is not identifying himself with the body because we know body changes. Modifications are in the body, modifications are in the mind. So he does not identify with the body or the mind or the intellect. So that's why he does not suffer from any changes anymore. He goes beyond the realm of change. Then what does he do after that? He strives to serve all. Serve all. Without any trace of selfishness. And this is what Lord Krishna talked about too. Okay. Jag Kalyan. Let's look at next one. Brahm Atmanahu Shodhityahu Ek Bhav Avgahinhi Nirvikalpaha Chachinmatraha Vriti Pragyeti Kathyate Susthita Sa Bhavedasya Sthit Pragya Sa Uchyate. Again, he's defining the Sthit Pragya for us. Ek Bhav Avgahine admits only the identity between Shodhityo, between the well-analyzed Shodhityo. Brahma Atmano, the self and Brahma. Nirvikalpa, free from all limitations and duality. Cha means and, Chinmatraha, only concerned with pure knowledge. Chinmatra. And vritti, the modifications. Pragyati, as illumination. Pragya iti. Kathyate is called Susthita. Susthita means very steady. Sa means he. Bhavet asya. That means he is sthit pragya. Sa uchyate is called. Okay. Susthita, very steady. So this is the definition of a sthit pragya. So the sort of mental activity which admits only the identity of the self and the Brahma. Ek bhav avgahini. So that means the self and the Brahma, they are one. That kind of a thinking, that kind of a bhavana, free from all limitations and devoid of duality. That means there's no difference between them, Brahma and self, which is only concerned with free knowledge. Pure knowledge is called the illumination. Okay? That is a pragya. One who has this steady illumination is known as a man of steady wisdom. So he's trying to define this sthit pragya for us. So that means first the mind should be purified, intellect should be purified through vivek, steady discrimination. And this discrimination is that there's a oneness of the self, the soul, and the substratum of the whole world, which is Brahma. So first of all, we have to purify our antakaran. And with that kind of antakaran, you see the oneness. Because that lower mind has ended and that mind has become stilled. And when you experience this kind of a stillness in the mind, that is called a illumined mind. Sattva buddhi, man of a steady perfection. So during those inspired moments of wisdom, or sometimes during the studies, our own studies or meditation, or when we are listening to a master, at that moment, you just have that realization that there is one, they are not two. And that is sthit pragya. Normally what happens, the intellect of ours keep on shaking. Why does it shake? Because there are doubts. Why we have doubts? Because there's no correct knowledge in there. There's no steadiness in there. But once we have a steadiness in our antakaran, then we see that it's only one. It's only one in reality. That is a sthit pragya. Let's look at, because he's going to explain what sthit pragya is in all these verses to us. Several verses. यस्य हे प्रज्ञः स्थिता भवेत् यस्य आनन्दा निरन्तरः यस्य प्रपञ्चः विस्मृतप्रायः स ईष्यते जीवन मुक्तः. So whether you call it a sthit pragya or jivan mukta, it's the same thing. So yasya, for whom pragya, illumination, sthita bhavet, is very steady. Yasya, for whom anandaha, the experience of bliss, nirantaraha, endless, constant, prapanchaha, the phenomenal world, the world which we live in. Yasya, for whom vi samrit praya, is as good as forgotten. So means he, ishyate, is considered jivan muktaha, liberated while living. He who has a steady wisdom, who experiences endless bliss, who has forgotten the phenomenal world, forgotten in the sense that it's not important anymore. So temporary things, useless things we forget. So for this Jivan Mukta person, this is temporary. Why get anxious about it? No anxiety, no stress about this phenomenal world. Visimrit prayaha. So who has forgotten the phenomenal world, he is considered a Jivan Mukta. So Jivan Mukti, or liberation from the concept of the Jivhood. So this understanding is so firm and steady in this person because his experience of the higher reality is not temporary, it's not accidental, it's constantly with him. He knows what the reality is. His experience of the bliss and the peace is nirantar, unbroken, because he has transcended the lower mind, the lower intellect. So in that condition, the world is just like a things forgotten. Vi samrit praya. So he is established in Brahma. He lives in a state of continuous experience of joy. This is considered a Jivan Mukta. Okay? So still living in a body, eats like us, talks like us, but the source of the bliss is eternal for this person. Leen dhirapi jagrati jagrat dharmaha vivarchitaha yasya bodha nirvasnaha sa ishyate jivan muktaha. Leen dhirapi, even though merged himself in Brahma, like a mind is merged. Jagrati, awake, alert. Jagrat dharmaha vivarchita, without the characteristics of wakefulness. Yasya, whose bodha, knowledge, nirvasanaha, free from desire, free from vasanas. Sa means he, ishyate, considered jivan muktaha, liberated while living. He who has merged himself in Brahma, yet is alert, but without the characteristics of wakefulness. whose knowledge is free from desire, he is considered a Jivan Mukta. So another way he is explaining what Jivan Mukta is. So the intellect, see, ordinary person, intellect is merged in the outer world, temporary world, sansar. But this person's intellect is merged in absolute reality. Whether you want to call it a Om or a Brahma. So he is awakened towards a reality and sleeping towards the illusory part of this life. So this is what he is trying to explain it to us. So he has awakened to the higher reality, and mind is as though asleep, but the individual is as though awake. So awakened to the reality and the sleeping towards this temporariness. Some people call it a wakeful sleep or sleepless sleep. So, or it is like a pure awareness alone. And this is knowledge. So it's not that normally we consider the knowledge of the things. But this Jivan Mukta, he has a knowledge of the reality. It is the knowledge without any vasanas, because all the vasanas, they have been dried out. There's no any urge for the passion. So he is alive in this state, and he's called a Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta. Another definition in the next verse also. This is such an important term, this Jivan Mukta. So he is explaining it from so many different angles to us. Jivan Mukta. Because this condition is not reached after we let the body go. This is where we can reach while still in the body. That's why it's called a Jivan Mukta. Ya kalavan api nishkalaha shant sansar kalanaha yasya chitam vinishintam sa ishyate Jivan Muktaha. Ya means he who kalavan api, even though with a body consisting of parts. Kalavan. Nishkala is without parts. Shant sansar kalanaha is one whose concern about the world has been calmed. Shant ho gaya. Shant sansar kalana. Yasya means whose? Chittam, mind. Vinishchitam, free from anxiety. Sa means he. Jivan Muktaha, liberated while living. Ishyate is considered. He whose concern about the world has been stilled, calmed. Who has a body consisting of parts. That means body has the arms and the legs and the eyes and the nose. Yet is without parts. That means not concerned about it. Whose mind is free from anxiety. He is considered a Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta. Our thoughts are the one which create all these disturbances, worries, anxieties, sorrows. Thoughts doing that. But when the mind is quietened, all these sorrows, all these worries, they also get quietened. So this is a Jivan Mukta. His body is made of the parts, but he is not worried about them. Because he is looking at that homogeneous infinite everywhere, not the parts. He is living with all these parts, but he is constantly living in the state of oneness. There's no chinta, there's no worry in the mind. no uncontrollable agitation, sorrows. This is the kind of a person he is, Jivan Mukta. So now we got to think about it. We are doing the sadhana. Are we moving towards this? Okay. Sure, he is describing the ultimate goal, but are we moving towards this or not? Or are we still where we were before we started the sadhana? Sometimes worry about the body, sometimes worrying about the finances, sometimes worrying about what others said, others did or didn't do. We got to look at it. Because the whole sadhana is the sadhana of our mind. We got to purify our mind. We got to make it restless, or restful, away from restlessness. Otherwise, it keeps on shaking. And the shaking of the mind is always the anxiety, the stress, and the worries. Let's look at one more and then we'll discuss. Api dehe asmin chhayavat anuvartini vartamane ahanta mamta abhavaha lakshanam jivan muktasya. Api means even, vartamane, when it persists. Dehe asmin, in this body, chayavat anuvartini, following like a shadow. Chaya is the shadow. Chayavat is like a shadow. So following like a shadow. Ahanta mamta abhavaha, the absence of the concepts of I and mine. Lakshanam is the indication, Jivan Muktasya, of a Jivan Mukta. The absence of I and mine. These concepts. Even in this body, which persists like a shadow. This is the indication in a Jivan Mukta. So absence of the I and mine, this is I and this is mine. Absence, they just slowly go away. And this body is also persisting, but like a shadow. Like a shadow. Just like for a shadow, we don't worry about it. Shadow can go into the ditch, we don't worry about it. Somebody can walk over our shadow, we don't care. So body is like a shadow for a Jivan Mukta person. So we can we normally recognize the things according to the properties. Right? What the properties are, what the guns are. See, just like when we want to know what sun is, what is the sun, what is the moon, we look at light, heat, coolness, beauty, the properties. So over here, he is giving us the characteristics or the properties of a Jivan Mukt person in all these verses. And it's not just to judge others, but we got to look at it, our sadhana. Is it taking us towards that climax or not? So a liberated person lives in the physical world with a body, but without the I-ness and the mine-ness. That means the arrogance, the egoistic concept has dropped down. Because he does not consider himself to be the body, nor does he consider the objects belonging to the body as his. Because we know that it's not ours. How many times in our rituals also we say, idam na mam, this is not mine. But we sometimes only say it, this Jivan Mukta person is experiencing it. But body is still following. He he still resides in the body. So that's why he says the body follows him like a shadow. But no egoistic identification with his shadow, with his body. Because he has realized the great light of consciousness. Okay. So the relationship of the man of perfection with his body is exactly like our relationship with our shadow. So in all these beautiful verses, he talked about the culmination of the sadhana, then sthit pragya, then the definitions of Jivan Mukta. So sadhana will take us towards this state of Jivan Mukta. And a Jivan Mukta person is a yogi. Jivan Mukta person has realized that I am no different than Brahman, everybody else is the same. When the time comes to let go of the body, can become Brahmalin or come back as an avatar or as a guru out of compassion for people like us. So Jivan Mukta. So let's stop it here. Om Purnamada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.